When BioWare first announced that Anthem would be delaying its entire roadmap, there was definitely something akin to a paradigm shift. Things were already bad enough for Anthem. It felt like things like the Cataclysm were way too far out in May, but now, with the whole roadmap delayed, with no dates provided in terms of when we can expect promised features and expansions, it's just the whole game's in limbo right now. And now concerns have been further amplified by the strong insinuation from BioWare Edmonton that they have transitioned from Anthem development to Dragon Age 4 development. It all began with a tweet by Anthem executive producer Mark Dara, who tweeted the following: "We aren't working on Dragon Age 3. We aren't working on Dragon Age 5. I guess that's that." And then in a follow-up tweet, he linked to the Dragon Age teaser trailer shown at Game Awards 2018. So the message is clear. He's basically saying that all hands are on deck for Dragon Age 4 at BioWare Edmonton, while Austin continues to work on Anthem and keep it on life support. Now, I'd like to remind you guys that based on Jason Schreier's expose on Dragon Age 4's development, the game's still a very long ways away. And that is because, according to reports, the game was rebooted during Anthem's development. It was first codenamed Joplin, and the concept they came up with for this game sounded really cool. It was supposed to be fully single player, or at the very least, the term multiplayer never came up during this game's conceptualization. The premise was that you as the player would be controlling a group of spies and engaging in heists and stuff like that. The game had a focus on density over volume, so the world would be smaller, but there'd be more dynamic elements. There'd be more of a focus on choices that have consequences, on making missions as branching as possible, the world more dynamic, so on and so forth. Just keep things tighter, and within that smaller space, make a lot more things happen, essentially. But what got in the way of Project Joplin was Andromeda's troubled development history and Anthem's troubled development history. They constantly had to pull people away from Dragon Age so they could help put out the fire that were Andromeda and Anthem. And it was during Anthem's troubled development that both EA and BioWare finally decided to cancel Joplin, which would later be rebooted as a project codenamed Morrison. Now, one factor that influenced the cancellation and reboot was the fact that Joplin wasn't going to be a live service, but now with Morrison, this game is apparently supposed to be a live service in accordance to EA's initiative to make all of their games under their umbrella live service to be recurrently monetizable, so on and so forth. So now there's this concern surrounding this game. BioWare has already shown with Anthem that they don't know how to make a proper live service, so why should people have faith that Dragon Age 4 as a live service will be any different? Also, Project Morrison is being built using Anthem's development tools and codebase. It seems more indicative that there will be a lot of online components for Dragon Age 4, but at the very least, they're not starting from scratch, so that may mitigate some of the technical issues they had when building Anthem. They might have an easier time working through the technical elements of Dragon Age 4 so they can focus on the content and the creative elements. Anyway, I digress. What you need to know is that Dragon Age 4, now codenamed Morrison, is in very early stages of development. We're probably not going to see a gameplay trailer for years. It's going to be a while before the game comes out, but Edmonton is now fully committing themselves towards developing Dragon Age 4, and that means shifting key developers of Anthem, producers, and what have you, away from Anthem towards the new project. Unsurprisingly, all of this has led people to wonder, what about Anthem? The narrative soon became that BioWare is jumping ship from Anthem, that they're abandoning it. When one user asked on Twitter who is leading Anthem now that Mark Dara and Michael Gamble have moved on, Michael Gamble responded with this: Ben Irving and Chad Robertson are your dudes to follow. Ben Irving, for those who don't know, is a lead producer on Anthem, and Chad Robertson is head of live services over at BioWare Austin. So with those tweets out there now, some people began to insinuate that BioWare was ditching the game, to which Gamble responded with this: "Not whatsoever, I'm just linking people to folks that might have info that I do not." But that didn't fully assuage the situation. Speculation kept building that BioWare was abandoning Anthem. So Chad Robertson took to Twitter to respond to these concerns, and he said this: "We remain 100% committed to Anthem and look forward to showing players the new content we are working on. We want to make sure we aren't overpromising, so our updates on what's coming in the game will be focused when we have things near completion." Along with Ben Irving and I, we've got a big team between Austin and Edmonton, focused and motivated for improving the game. We appreciate your support and for being on this journey with us. Last but not least, Gamble then retweeted Robertson's assurance and then added this: "There's been a lot of incorrect speculation on this. The studio's support and commitment to Anthem has not changed." So basically, BioWare is insisting that Anthem isn't being abandoned or anything like that BioWare still has plans to support it long-term in parallel to Dragon Age 4's development. Now, it is worth keeping in mind that what's going on here with Anthem is actually nothing unusual. It isn't uncommon for a studio to finish one project, pass it off to another side team if it is a live service that's meant to continue for a while, and then for the core team to move on and work on the next big thing. That's sort of what happens to any major development studio that's working on multiple projects that want to get multiple games out that aren't focused on a singular franchise. But here's the thing, what makes this concerning for Anthem is the fact that the game didn't launch complete. It launched broken and unfinished. It feels like there's still much work left to be done for this title. It'd be one thing if Anthem was in a satisfactory state and then got passed on before the core team moved on, but the fact that the core team's moving on even when Anthem is in such a poor, compromised state is what's making people go, wait a minute, shouldn't you work on this first? Shouldn't you focus on fixing the broken thing you released before you move on to the next thing? Shouldn't you do your due diligence and take responsibility? If Division 2 developers made a similar announcement, people wouldn't bat an eye. That's because Division 2 has a solid foundation that a side team can use to further build upon while the core developers move on. But the same couldn't be said for Anthem. Anthem is in such a bad place that it really does feel like it needs all of BioWare to spend like a solid month or two focus fixing it before they move on to other projects. Here's the thing though, I don't suspect that EA executives would allow BioWare to invest all of their time and resource into fixing a game that's already been poorly received, that's already in a rough state, that seems like a lost cause to a lot of people, that's probably not making as much money as other EA titles. EA probably cannot financially justify shifting all of BioWare to focus fix this game that has lost so much momentum. I wouldn't be surprised if EA executives already deem Anthem as a lost cause. It made like a burst of money at launch with sales and some microtransactions, but now that it's waning in terms of audience interest, EA is probably going, well, that's that, let's move on to the next thing, rather than going, how do we bolster this? How do we recoup this? They just don't care. EA has just never been the kind of company to give games that kind of support. Ubisoft, at least, you can give them credit for staying the course with certain games like Rainbow Six Siege and For Honor, which got much better over time. EA isn't like that. Now, even if BioWare does have a sizable team committed towards bolstering Anthem, towards improving it long term, I have to wonder whether it matters anymore, given that from the vibe that I'm getting here, people seem to have abandoned this game, people seem to be giving up. There seems to be very little hope left. So while BioWare may be committed, I have to wonder whether the player base has that same level of commitment towards the title's future. I mean, if you go to the Anthem subreddit, you'll find that the most upvoted post right now is a thread titled, "Can we all just agree that Anthem is dead?" This user basically just highlights a laundry list of issues and signs indicating that we are headed towards a future to nowhere with Anthem. He pointed out how Twitch viewership is at an all-time low, noting that last time he checked, the game averaged 197 viewers in the last 7 days. Now I checked again just to make sure, and the number has since dipped. Anthem is now averaging 191 viewers in the last 7 days. The Reddit post then proceeded to talk about BioWare's lackluster communication, their proclivity towards these vague assurances that don't give us any clear-cut signs as to what the future holds. The post also talked about the utterly piss-poor endgame that brings the whole game down due to poor loot drop rates as well as just general lack of content that has players repeating the same mission over and over and over again. There was talk of the devastating roadmap delay that pushed everything, including major expansions like the Cataclysm back, as well as many other key features that were promised for April. Bugs and server crashes that have been in the game since launch continue to persist. Then there's the expose on Anthem from Kotaku and Jason Schreier that further paint a bleak picture for Anthem's future and BioWare's future due to the studio's habit of mismanagement, their lack of vision, the technical issues, hellish work environment, in-office politics, so on and so forth. The false marketing is a really bad look. They showed off gameplay demos that were completely fake, that were put out there before the game was even starting to be built. And overall, there's just this general lack of good news, enthusiasm, optimism for Anthem. And it's been that way since launch, and it's only gotten worse over time. And now with key developers moving on from Anthem, despite the game being in such a poor state, despite all of these issues, is giving people less hope than ever. Anthem feels like a special circumstance where it needs the full power of BioWare. It doesn't feel like it's enough to just have a side team say, we're committed, and expect that things will be fixed just like that. Given the scope of Anthem's troubles, it feels like if they're deciding to move on instead of staying the course to fix this, they're just kind of writing Anthem off as not worth investing too much manpower and resources. It feels like both BioWare and EA are giving up on it. But we don't know what the future holds. I personally feel like the writing's on the wall, but maybe BioWare Austin can somehow pull off a miraculous comeback, a comeback of the century out of their asses. But even with that commitment, I fear that the players are ultimately what keep Anthem alive, and the players are not as committed as BioWare are anymore. The players, I feel, have lost patience. It's just, this is too much of a disaster to continue supporting, to continue hoping that it will eventually bloom. Anyway, I suppose all we can do right now is wait and see what happens. These are one man's take on the whole situation. I'd love to hear what your perspective is on BioWare moving on to Dragon Age 4 in the comments below. With that, I would like to end this news update and discussion video. Thank you for tuning in. To be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.